an idiot is calling.
Silence it.
I always try to remember to do that, and I just double checked it. Mine's on silent.
We always leave it on. It adds to the flavor of it's a trailer park show.
There you go. All right. Howdy, 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 howdy.
Wow. Welcome. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you.
Welcome, welcome. We're excited, and it is such an exciting time that we're in. I'm not sure about these candidates because they are just working, but it's always exciting during the time before election and just that time leading up to election, and we're excited about it. Pokey's going to introduce our guest tonight.
10-4. Gabriel's in working the machinery because someone who's good at working machinery needs to be working machinery. We all know Dave Nelly. He's not a guest or
Hey,
he's
Dave.
kind of a host. I don't know. He's just here.
He's just at home.
Yeah. Anyway,
Frequent visitor.
Kevin Ledlaw,
Ludlow.
Kevin Ledlow.
State District 46, is it?
That's right. District
State
46.
representative
Northeast
from the
Austin.
Libertarian Party. I told y'all.
All the way.
We have
Welcome,
plenty of
Kevin.
libertarians.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome.
So you can't call me a hardcore. They can't call me a hardcore Republican after standing behind you when you mouth up about the voter ID law.
Oh, my God.
Remember that? And then I was standing right behind you.
Well, as a matter
Like
of
you
fact,
partnering with him.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, Pokey.
And nobody saw the sign I was holding.
I got
Oh, my
interviewed
goodness.
today by the Texas Tribune as well on the ID
On the
law.
ID law?
Yes.
That's all they wanted.
Yeah.
Hold on here, Mr. Ed English. Before we do, we had a press conference concerning the event on
Easter
on-
Seals event.
And all they wanted to hear about, they didn't want to hear about the Easter Seals taking over this little bitty park. All they wanted to know about was our thoughts on the ruling for the Texas voter ID law. And he did introduce me. He said, I got a Republican friend right here. Can I answer? They avoided me like the plague. And they went to Gabriel. And Gabriel says, I got no problem. They avoided him like the plague. So, but nonetheless, they showed the thing where you were given the LULAC part. And I was standing right behind him. So I think, oh, all my friends are going to think I support them.
So what is the big idea anyway? When you have to show identification everywhere you go.
There's
I mean,
nowhere
come
else
on.
you can go.
And how in the world is that stopping anyone dealing with socioeconomic? How is that going to keep the poor people from voting? That's a bunch of crack. And you know what? You have to show identification everywhere you go.
Everywhere you
What
go.
is wrong with showing your ID?
Well-
Now, we have an awesome gentleman we need to
We do.
introduce.
Ed English, District 6,
7.
7,
District 7.
Austin City Council.
Wow.
We can ask them about voter ID, huh?
We're going to ask him as well. But
Sure.
you know, before we get started, I want to ask you where all does your district encompass?
Sure, great question. So District 46 is ostensibly north of 7th Street.
Okay.
It's east of 35. There's a little bit that goes west of 35. It goes all the way up into Pflugerville around the 45 tollway, and it goes all the way out east to Manor. So it's a pretty big area.
It is a pretty big area.
yeah.
Wow. So are you running? Who's your opponent?
My opponent is 19-year incumbent Donna Dukes.
Wow, you're running against Donna Duke.
Yes, I am.
Wow. Well, congratulations and good luck.
Thank you very much.
And Ed, tell us
right.
where is District 7? What all does it encompass?
Well, the short version of that is it's a slice out of North Central Austin.
North Central.
The roadway that you'd most closely associate with it is Burnett Road.
Okay.
It encompasses all of Burnett Road from its origins at 45th all the way north of the city limits. It's sort of barbell shaped. It runs across the northern city limits from near Mopac and Palmer Lane,
Okay.
across 35, catches the very northeast corner of the city. And then it tapers in the middle and runs down essentially Burnett Road and Mopac. Then it widens out again at the bottom over to Lamar, runs westbound along 45th, back to Mopac. So it's kind of barbell shaped. It has
Wow.
east and west component on the north and south end, and it's narrow in the middle. But it runs along Burnett Road.
If you get in office, whatever you do, don't you let them put no bike lanes down Burnett Road. I'm telling you, Burnett Road is too congested, and I could just see the city of Austin putting some bike lanes
We'll get into
down
that.
Burner Road. We will.
We gotta
Okay,
start
okay.
with the bios.
All
Can you
right, all
tell
right,
us
all right.
All
Let's
right.
do
about
that.
yourself? We'll start down there with you, Kevin.
All right, let's see. What do you want to hear? So
Age, all that stuff.
all right. Criminal record.
You won't get a
my
criminal record
None.
now that you already been busted for sure.
None yet. So I'm 35 years old. I've been in Austin since 1997. Came here for school. Went to the University of Texas at Austin. I got a degree in mathematics. I started a small business shortly thereafter, after I did some traveling. And I live over in East Austin, so I live right around 51st and 35, just north of the Mueller area in Windsor Park. And I'm a software developer by trade, a software architect, in fact. And I have my own company, so I contract myself out to companies. And I've been doing it for about a decade now. And I like it. It's great. It gives me a lot of flexibility. And it makes me kind of an interesting person to run for a state office because, of course, most people are in the field of lawyers or what have you, and there's not a lot of scientists and engineers as far as I know. So I'd like to bring that type of voice into the state house.
APD didn't find any weed in your house.
They didn't find any weed in my house.
He got busted the other day.
Well, what he got was just some free airtime.
That's right.
Oh, is that it? Hey, you
So
know,
that's a
yeah,
positive thing.
Right.
He got some good airtime.
Depends how you spin it. That's right.
Yes, you did.
So, what issue?
Well, let's let Ed introduce
Well, I
himself.
was gonna ask him real
Right.
quick if I forget, because
Sure.
I enter into senior moments every now and then. I forget.
All right.
What issue or
Your number one
clicked
issue?
you off to say I want to run? I'm gonna
Yes.
Oh God, there's no shortage of them. I mean, the fact is we have such an overreach of every branch of government right now, from the federal, the state, all the way down to the local levels. I've been frustrated at the city council level for a very long time. I did consider running for city council. Ultimately, decided to go with a state run because the Libertarian Party needed people to take that position. I've run with it. It's been a lot of fun. I think I'm doing pretty well. And but at the federal level as well, I mean, there's a lot of overreach of government when you're talking about, libertarians love to look at foreign wars of aggression, things like that. Topic for me. As far as the state laws go, I've been looking specifically at the drug
You
laws.
had to ask.
Right. The drug law is a huge one. It's a complete coincidence of what happened at my house just 2 weeks ago, but that is happening all over the country right now. So it's something I'm very passionate about dealing with.
All right, let's hear about you, Ed.
All right. Well, I'm a 31-year resident of Austin, and all 31 years have been within District 7. I grew up in South Texas. I'm a Vietnam-era veteran. While in the Navy, I taught student pilots how to fly a single-engine jet called an A4 Skyhawk. After leaving the service, I got my degree in political science at Texas A&I University. It's now known as A&M Kingsville. And then I started a career in sales and marketing. I am retired now. My career focused very heavily on contract management and generation, and I'm looking to bring that skill to the table on the city council because we have a $3.5 billion budget set for next year. And I think understanding what questions to ask to know that when the city enters into contracts, very expensive contracts, that we make wise decisions. And I also was a key member of Austinites for Geographic Representation. Donated thousands of hours over a 2-year period to get the 10-1 system on the ballot and passed, and then monitored the mapping process for the new districts last year. And I'm very committed to doing everything I can to ensure that opportunity is fulfilled. And one of the things that I bring to the table, which again, in addition to contract skills, is I bring private industry experience to the table. Most of my opponents in this race, their entire career has been government-oriented. I'd like to see a citizen or a private industry voice on the council because I think there's a very different orientation.
Yes,
Okay, well,
it is.
go ahead, Dave. Let's hear
You're,
from you.
you're running in District 7. Isn't District 7 the district which is traditionally most dominated by people in Allendale and all those groups, which are very much for the status quo of Austin politics?
Well, I'll give you kind of a two-part answer to that. One, you are correct. Our district, by its geographic design, the southern part of the district, the Allendale, Crestview, Brentwood area, traditionally is more politically engaged. They have a higher voter turnout. It's not uncommon to see people from those neighborhoods run for office. On the north end of the district, we don't see nearly as much of that. I think as a representative of that district, you have to be able to manage the views. They are very, very, very different in some cases. We all face the same issues that are citywide: traffic, affordability, property taxes. But within the district, there are some differences in the issues that are specific to the district, north to south.
Well, that is awesome. That's a pretty big district.
It is a big district, but all the districts are approximately 80,000 people.
Right.
That was a legal requirement for the districts. So you can't pack 80,000 people into too small a space. District 4, which is immediately to the east of District 7 because of the high density, it's the most compact district, but all of the districts cover quite a few square miles.
Which is incidentally my district.
I don't have that many
Okay.
neighborhood homes, right? kind of like Burnett and Anderson. And
Well,
then the Jack in the Box, that's kind of like a little neighborhood area.
Well, that's one of the primary commercial intersections. You do have, Burnett Road's kind of the spine for the
Right.
district. And south of Anderson Lane along Burnett Road, either side of Burnett Road, you have a lot of residences, a lot of subdivisions and neighborhoods that were built out in the late 40s through the 50s. As you move north on Burnett Road, it's just like concentric circles. The age of the homes, the age of the neighborhoods gets progressively younger as you move north. And I happen to live near Mopac and Palmer Lane. I'm on the far north end of the district, and most of those neighborhoods were built out in the late 70s through the 80s, although there's a few neighborhoods that were a little newer than that.
When elected, what do you plan to do, let's say, for your first 100 days? I mean, what are issues are you looking at wanting to hop on, get on as soon as you get into office?
Well, one, I would like to see us reapproach the transportation is a hot button issue. There's two or three others that, depending upon who you talk to, they may change the order, but transportation's gonna be on everybody's list. And I'd like to dig into that because frankly, and I've been on record, I oppose Proposition 1, the rail bond. For a lot of reasons, I won't take up a whole lot of time on that unless we get into that later. But I'm not anti-rail. I think that the transportation issues are so complex that you have to look at every available option. It's going to take tackling that problem from many, many different directions. That would potentially include rail as long as it's cost effective and has a high enough ridership. But road improvements, vastly expanded and improved bus service. We need to, I believe the rail bond package is going to fail on November the 4th. I could be wrong, but I think if our district's any indication it's going to fail, it's going to fail badly. So if it fails, we have to start over again. We have to start looking at other issues or other means of addressing that issue. So that'll certainly be one of the things we'll try to dive into very quickly. I can give you some more, but I don't want to monopolize the time.
No. Marilyn?
You got any questions for her?
I want to ask Ed a quick question. Ed, good Lord, Kevin, sorry.
This one?
Kevin.
Sure.
I want to ask the same question that Gavino asked him. So what are some of the things, if you are elected into
On the
office, what
state
are some
level,
of the,
yeah.
At the
what
state
are
level.
some of the bills that you want to see in legislature?
Sure. Well, the way that I've been phrasing this since I've started the whole election is that, the Democrats and the Republicans have a stranglehold on the entire system. So I appreciate at the city council level nonpartisanship. That said, if a libertarian were to get elected, be it me or anybody else, I have no delusion that I'm just going to walk in there and be able to actually create legislation that's going to get passed. That's not entirely the point, though. The point is that we don't have anybody else who's willing to challenge the status quo. So with the bills that you would think the liberals or in some cases the conservatives are going to introduce, they don't because perhaps they can't get popular support on it. The war on drugs, as I mentioned several times, I would absolutely love to adopt the exact same thing that Colorado took on with respect to the law with the war on drugs. I think it's good for the economy, it's good for the prison system, it's good for every individual who's getting unjustly accused or put in prison for victimless crimes in this state. So again, I don't think that I would just be able to walk in and change that. But what I would be able to do is walk in, try to introduce legislation, and then figure out who's willing to stand with it and who's not willing to stand with it. That's what I want to be. I want to be the person who can actually go against the grain for the issues that the Democrats in this particular case they talk about it like it's something that they're going to fix, but they're never going to fix it. And so I'd like to be the voice of reason for that one in
So are you
particular.
talking about legalizing marijuana? Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Okay.
Both from at very least a medicinal purpose. I mean, the fact that we don't use it medicinally blows my mind. But going beyond that to even a recreational stance. I mean, why should people be incarcerated for doing something that's really no different than alcohol? I mean, that's a crazy mindset to me. We use this war on drugs to put people behind bars. There's a for-profit prison system. It gives police officers carte blanche to do whatever they want. Everything's in the name of the war on drugs right now. I strongly disagree with this, and I'd like to be in the state house to fight for that. I mean, I think there's a lot of people unjustly behind bars right now.
Well, just getting elected to replace Donna Dukes would take the biggest advocate of the war on drugs out of
So there you go.
the legislature, because Donna Dukes, of course, works as a consultant for Wackenhut,
Right.
because we have no conflict of interest law in the state of Texas.
Right.
So she just gets paid in the off season by Wackenhut, and that finances her existence and sending her kids to private school. And then she does whatever they want in the legislative session.
Right.
And you can change that.
True.
And so it trickles on down to the police arresting and all that kind of
Right,
stuff.
well, it's Wackenhut that makes the money.
Right.
They're running the prisons like this one in East Austin, and money they give to, that Donna Dukes gives to finance those prisons increases based on the number of inmates there are.
Right.
So there's a profit incentive to put more people in prison, and
Yeah.
the drug laws do that.
So they're saying, we need some more bodies.
Right, of course they.
And then she said, okay, we'll get them.
That's why I say, for a Democrat, that's kind of unusual to see her so anti-drug.
Well, you would think, but it's not, and that's exactly my point. Is that the Democrats,
Now we know why.
if we look on the liberal topics, the war on drugs being one of them, they talk a good game. It sounds great, but there's never any forward motion with that. So, and I really believe that I firmly believe that's because you don't have people inside of the House who are willing to challenge that. I don't have any loyalty to the Democrats or the Republicans, so I'd have no problem trying to introduce that legislation. And again, see who stands where.
Things are being shaken up as well
Sure.
in the legislature. You're going to see Republicans introducing laws like that
Right.
this session. Particularly not as radical as that, but
Sure.
a decriminalization of up to 4 ounces of marijuana is going to be introduced by a Republican legislator this coming session.
Sure.
Yeah, and that's because they understand, as the Democrats don't, because they're involved in the profit aspect of it. Republicans understand that we have too many people in prison, and we need to make that a more humane situation. And it's going to sort of change the aspect of the parties in a lot of ways.
Right.
Will our
So-
speaker go along with that, I wonder?
Who
Well,
knows
we'll
what our
see.
speaker will do? Yeah,
That's-
probably yes.
One of the reasons I've seen recently, not recently, but as time has passed from the 70s up to now, the relaxation on penalties on drugs, especially recreation drugs. And one of the reasons is that many of the reps and senators' sons and nephews and get busted, and they say, "Oh my God, we can't send Johnny now. He's not going to go to Harvard." So,
Or
What was my friend Clements? I'm
Yeah.
gonna put your son to break
Yeah,
your rocks.
yeah.
Remember him?
so you support the legalization of marijuana?
Definitely. I mean, take for example the situation that occurred at my house last week. I think most people have seen it. We spoke about it before. You know, there was a case of mistaken identity. Police called on my house cleaner. I arrived home to find police there. The fact is that there was somebody reporting this person trying to be a vigilante, dealing with it, thinking that she's a burglar or what have you, which she's not at all. It's ridiculous. But look at the facts of the case. The facts is that you potentially have this dangerous situation involving somebody trying to break into my house or whatever, and the whole thing devolves into the notion that somebody smelled marijuana. So, I mean, God forbid. And so cops draw their weapons, search the premises. I mean, this is crazy. And this happens all of the time. So the fact that it happened to me, frankly, I'm fortunate enough that really nothing came of it. But for many people, they get taken off in cuffs. They're put in a holding cell for a couple of days while the police figure it out.
Or get
And
shot?
and this is, well, right, and
Well,
in
yeah,
worst
That's
cases.
the worst case.
Well,
Right.
And that does happen. They'll go in there if they're
Right.
really suspicious of it. They'll go in there, guns blazing, SWAT team and everything, and they'll shoot whoever moves.
Right.
Yes, that is true.
So this wasn't the case at all. But just assume that my house cleaner were sitting
Involved in
inside.
Anything like that?
No, not at all. So I mean,
That'd be all right then.
just assume a house cleaner were inside and she had been smoking marijuana. How does that possibly justify police coming into a private residence, drawing their weapons, and searching the? I
If you
mean,
have been smoking marijuana, they could have seized your house.
right, and that's the bigger
So-
part.
Well,
You know,
did they have a search warrant?
Yep.
no, they didn't have a search warrant. So that's the thing. I mean,
Probable cause.
they're using probable cause on the notion that they smell something, which is a completely indefensible notion. You can always say you smell something. There's no way to prove that you don't.
So how do you feel about what's transpired since Denver has had their law? Since, Colorado's had their law.
I'm a big
to
fan of it.
legalize it. I mean, I know they've talked about some of the issues that they're having that, I know there's
Increasing
pros and
car wrecks
cons of, in everything that you do, but I don't know how they feel that this law has already taken place. Should it have taken place, or should we not have allowed it to take place? I'm not sure.
Well, I don't think there's been any expediency here. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. This has been going on for 40 years. People have been getting thrown in jail for this sort of thing. And
Probably longer than that, but
well, fair enough, but
it used to be a
you know,
felony here in Texas,
so
Just to receive.
So I mean, sure, I'm sure there are various downsides that come along with it, but there's huge upsides too. I mean, one of the things that they did, which I think is, I'm blown away that they did this, but they actually retroactively applied it to everybody who was in prison for nonviolent drug charges. So I think that was a wonderful thing to do, to release all those nonviolent drug offenders. I mean, why would we want to pay money for people that were doing nothing? They were just enjoying themselves in some recreational manner. They get put behind bars for that, and now we pick up the tab for that. I mean, how is that a conservative principle in the slightest?
What is it? Free TV? 3
Yeah, I
meals.
mean,
Well-
3 meals, a warm place
Newspaper,
to
the
sleep.
American Statesman.
The current cost for each prisoner incarcerated in California, which is the ultimate example, is $62,000 a year. It's not quite that bad here in
Do
Texas.
that for half price.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm willing to,
Take all you got.
I'll hire them for $30,000 a
Right.
year to do my yard, and they can live in
Just keep them
the
there.
pool house or something.
Sure.
Texas Prison Industries, I may sum up with that.
Well, I
I'm sure
do
they got
wanna-
the same out there.
I want to ask you this. So how do you
We
feel?
gonna
I
get to
know
you,
that's
don't
your,
worry
that's
about
your
it.
That's okay.
number one
Mm.
thing that you want to push.
Right.
But I mean, you have passion for it too.
Sure.
How do you feel about protecting our borders?
Well, frankly, I don't see this as a huge issue. In fact, I think one of the, and I know I probably disagree with a lot of people on this panel here, but I think one of the biggest things that we've got going on right now, all this violence that's escalated at the border, again, completely accredited to this ridiculous war on drugs. You've got huge gang violence that's amassed itself along the border. These are wars based upon, or these are fights based upon the fact that you've made the substance illegal. People want it, so there's a huge market for it. Violence escalates itself. It's our government versus a bunch of gangs in Mexico, and I think that's ridiculous. You know, I look back to a time which I wasn't even alive for, and it was a completely different time. I have a lot of you know, friends who are Mexican nationalists, and they tell me of a much different time before this whole thing escalated. And I think it plays largely into it. So again, I would be willing to revisit my position on border policies after the drug war is taken care of. Take care of that. Let me see what happens for a couple of years, and then perhaps I'll change my tune if the problem is still as big as it seems to be right now. But I think that's really escalating it.
So what about the gangs that come over here that do harm to innocent people, like the Texas ranchers that are out there, that are they're you know these gangs that come over and they do things to them that's not drug related.
Sure. Well, I mean, I definitely think that should be addressed. It should be stopped. I mean, I don't have any problem putting down violence with, you know, an equal means of violence of law enforcement or, you know, various forms of Texas law enforcement. So I don't have any problem with that whatsoever. But, you know, that's a much different story from the situation that we're seeing directly along the line of the border. So I'm not interested in getting involved, you know, in sending more troops down there to deal with this problem that largely has to do with the war on drugs. So, I mean, I just think it's an abject waste of money. It's not going to accomplish anything. We've seen that for years. So let's cut at the root of the problem, and then we can revisit and see just how bad it really is in a couple more years. And I'm guessing it would decline drastically. So that's my guess for that.
If he's going to the left, let's go to your left. Get back to Ed here. Holy
All
cow.
right,
you
Ed.
No, you're not quite open borders though anyway.
I mean, it's not a matter of open borders or closed borders.
That's we don't need to.
All right.
I understand what you're saying, because I used to go to Mexico quite a bit, and yeah, there wasn't you paid off the cop for respect. There wasn't all this violence down there and all that. Anyway, the two big issues here for town: transportation and affordability.
Yeah.
I don't want my rent to go up no more, but I know if they keep taxing my landlord, they're gonna raise the rent, because a lot of these people don't understand, when you rent, you're paying the property tax.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, your landlord ain't taking it out of his pocket.
No.
Everything in his pocket come out of your pocket.
Exactly.
I got a question related to this. How do you feel about the city of Austin utility? I don't live in
Oh.
Austin. I'm out in the county, but I am on City of Austin Power.
Yes.
And our rates are unbelievably high. And right next to us, just across the street, people have signed up for Blue Bonnet, and we don't have any way to get out of City of Austin.
That's correct.
Onto independent contractor, independent electric company, and they pay an awful lot less than we are.
Yeah, it's you know, the city of Austin. I'm sure most of the viewers probably owns their own utility, and it's a monopoly. And there's a lot of reasons why the utility rates have escalated. One of the ones I'd like to deal with on the council is the fact that, and I'll use this last year as an example, $105 million of the money that you pay to the utility, $105 million out of your the revenue they generate from the bills that you pay is transferred to the city's general fund. And the city has over many years become addicted to that.
Oh, yes.
And what is the total money in the general slush fund now?
That's a good question, and I don't
It
know
was
that I could
170
get-
million last year. I don't know. maybe
That's,
even higher.
it's probably still in that same ballpark, but I couldn't give you an exact number on it. And I would like to see, and I know that it would be virtually impossible to do it in one fell swoop or over a 1 year period, but I'd like to see over a multi-year period, maybe that's 3, 4, 5 years, I'd like to see the money that's transferred from Austin Energy to the general fund. I'd like to see that ratcheted down. And I'd like to see the money that is kept in the utility used to do a couple of things. I'd like to see part of it used to explore other forms of energy sources, renewables. There's a lot of opportunities there. The cost, entry cost into that is coming down. We just signed recently a very cost-effective contract for solar energy out of West Texas. Those opportunities are increasing. That's another subject we can go into at another time or later. But we also need to use part of the money that isn't transferred to start ratcheting down the utility rates, and we can do that. It's very difficult to do that if you're in a stagnant economy or one that's declining, but we can replace that revenue. That revenue is replaced because for all of the challenges that a rapidly growing city presents, and many of them are difficult, it does have the added advantage of bringing new revenue in. For many years and projected for many more to come, we're going to see revenue growth based solely on the fact that we have people moving in, we have businesses moving in. And when you have a growing source of revenue, it allows you some opportunities to reduce that transfer from Austin Energy to the general fund, because it's replaced with new customers signing onto the system. And I'd like to see that ratcheted down. And at the bottom of your bill, you see all of the little accessory and funds or charges that are tacked on. Those never seem to go away, and if anything, they always seem to get bigger.
Yes.
And in fact, the drainage fees were declared illegal by a state judge here just a couple months ago, and the city's scrambling now to determine how they're going to replace that money.
We're at least spared those fees where we are out in the county, but it's very much the case that the fact that they use the energy charges to offset when they can't charge taxes for something, they charge it on the energy. That puts a much heavier burden on people who don't live in the city.
Yes, it does.
Because they don't get any of the services that's paying for.
Well, even the people that do live in the city, it's still a burden.
Yeah.
You know?
There are ways to bring the utility down. Utility rates
Bring
down.
it down.
Bring it down. Bring
Can
it
I
down.
go some other place real quick here? At that website there, Ed English District 7, can they, if anybody wants to get on your campaign and help you out, they can go there and find ways to do that?
Yes, they can. Ed English, Austin District 7, that's the number 7, not the word 7.org. And you'll
Just
find,
like it's written up there on the screen, right?
And
that
it
looks
was
correct.
Austin
It's down there,
Oh, yeah.
and you got any events coming up, stuff like that, they'll be able to find out all about it there?
That's correct. Well, part of the website includes events, and we
Yeah,
do
yeah, yeah,
we do
lot
have a couple coming up this week, but they are private residences, so we don't throw those open to the public because it's a private individual's
That's for
home.
the big money people, huh?
No, we don't live in I don't live in a wealthy district.
I just would like to point that out because I always point out how all these, you don't have to live in his district to help him. You can help any candidate you want, and all these candidates do need, you can volunteer for any of them.
That's correct.
Block walk, phone bank, hang up signs, there's so much, you can be involved, so many ways.
And, you know, young students can make it part of their government civic
They can
class
probably get a
project,
Fred class,
get involved in the campaign and learn the basics of campaigning, getting the vote out.
Any student that wants to assist the campaign, we can set them up in an internship and document their experience, and they can certainly add that to a resume.
What makes you outstanding amongst all the candidates in your race? If you'll let your viewers know why they should elect you.
Did I cut him off, but I did that? Did
No.
he finish what he's talking about, or?
Yeah, no,
Okay.
I'll change
You
subjects.
see, we left the Libertarian one off, cause I'm hardcore Republican, you know. So
We're coming back to it.
That's all right.
I'm sure they'll probably put it up
I'm
later,
sure there's
whether I
more.
like it or not.
Well, I alluded to some of my answers I've alluded to or mentioned earlier. One, I'm a candidate that brings private industry experience to the table, and I
I
think
like that.
I think that's a very different mindset
Yes.
than those candidates who've spent their entire career in government. I also mentioned that I was in sales and marketing for 30 years. I am retired now, but in addition to the contract management skills that I have, one of the things, if you're successful in that industry, that you must learn to do early on is how to listen. And all too often, candidates for office or politicians like to command the stage and do all the talking, and the listening part of the equation is forgotten.
Well, you
And-
just described the city of
Right. You must have been to a city council meeting.
City council.
And I've heard that from many, many people. A lot of the
Yes.
residents in the district, and I'm sure you'd probably find this to be true across the city, want a council that listens,
Mm-hmm.
that takes the time to understand what the citizens want. And I think that's one of the real opportunities that we have here in 10-1, the geographic-based system, is that we will have people coming from
Put
different parts
something
of
in
town.
I also think that a lot of people need to elect a candidate they can trust. Because, like you say, they're listening. A lot of people out there make this, come to decisions and they don't have all the facts. But once you sit at that desk, you're gonna start learning a lot more than the general citizen knows. And so I'd like to know that we can, trust you to make a decision regardless of what the polls say. As we talked about water plant 4, whatever it was earlier.
Yes.
While we were devouring our chicken or whatever it was.
Well, I think that's a very good point. And again, it goes back to a lot of what we heard when we were out on the trail for 10-1, is that people, the citizens want someone on the council, a group of people on the council, who will be independent of the influences which have really pushed the council for decades now. A lot of our city, a lot of the decisions that have been made, a lot of the focus, a lot of where the developments occurred, has largely benefited a very select few number of people, select businesses. And a lot of the people, I've heard it on the campaign trail, I've heard it for the last 2.5 years, the citizens want individuals who represent them, who represent the average
People.
citizen, and
Yes.
they don't want someone going to the council with a couple of hands in their back pocket of the people that paid for their campaign.
If I could do a quick example, you've been going to a lot of these forums they have, candidate forums.
Yes.
How many times do you see the same people at every forum?
There are some very politically engaged people that will make a lot of them, but typically people tend to make the one that's closest to them, and they are citizens that live nearby, and they're very engaged. They really want to hear what you have to say, and that's very, very encouraging. The turnout for a lot of the activities that are related to the council election has absolutely been phenomenal, because a lot of people realize this is an opportunity for a unique sea change in the direction of the council.
I went to mine, and but I do know that a lot of the same people will show up at a lot of these again and again.
October 20th is the first day of election, early vote,
Early
and it'll
voting.
go
That's
through the
right.
31st. So those of you that are registered to vote, get out there and vote. The Democratic Party is holding a function October 20th, and get out the Latino vote at Parque Zaragoza from 5 to 7 p.m.
That's next Monday. So
And
you still gonna make it to the show
I'm
afterwards?
still gonna make it, and I think we need to get this conversation a little bit more exciting. We're sleeping here. What's your position
All right.
on giving undocumented a driver's license?
On giving undocumented drivers license. I mean, if that's what people want to do, I'm totally in favor of it. I mean, I want I want to empower people the right to work here. I mean, when you get back to the whole open border thing, again, I'm not going to discuss all the nuances of open and closed, but the fact is, I don't want to define a Rand McNally, imaginary line as this arbitrary line in the sand that inhibits people from living their lives. There are people who want to contribute to society. There's people who want to live lives, who want to bring families up in a better environment. And they should be able to do that. And that's just the bottom line. So now, at the same time, you want to get into the conservative side of things. There's certainly plenty of things that we need to stop giving people. We cannot be funding the entire world and giving them every single thing that that the United States might have to offer. So that's a whole other conversation I'm willing to enter into as well. But as far as personal freedoms go, for people being able to live their lives, I totally support it. So the driver's license thing isn't a huge deal to me either way personally. But if we require a license to drive a vehicle, and the question is whether or not in order for somebody to come over from Mexico to drive a vehicle, they need a license. Sure. I mean, provided that they're a capable driver, give them a driver's license.
And the reason I ask that is because DPS used to issue out license before.
Mm.
So it's nothing foreign, nothing new.
Right.
Unfortunately, 9/11 started kicking a lot of restrictions
Sure.
and then questioning and things like that. So that's why I was asking you, because I know that's going to be another issue come this legislature.
Right.
Is that issue, and I don't know how many other
I
bills.
supported Paul Workman's, was that 2 sessions ago?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he kinda held for it, but
It's a public safety issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't want people driving on the road
Yeah.
who are prohibited from having licenses.
Right.
And may not be qualified to drive.
And so to that extent, I fully support that. I mean, I'm totally behind the safety aspect of it. So.
And you would think it would be a good thing for the insurance companies as well, you know.
Then it's part of Paul's bill, was you
yeah.
have to have insurance and,
He comes up with a lot of common sense bills and then gets a lot of crap for it.
yeah, he does.
And you do not have to take your picture ID to vote October 20th through the
That was
31st
so embarrassing,
Or
I standing
November the
right
4th.
behind you.
or
But
November
I
the
will point
4th.
out,
And-
contrary to what Democrats are saying,
Yeah.
in the national news, you can get an ID for free in Texas.
Oh.
You do not have to pay a poll tax or anything ridiculous like that, like they were claiming. You
Thank
can just go down and get it. You can get it the same day as the election.
You
If
can
you
get
want
them
to.
in a flea market.
Can? Oh, yeah, I see your cousins do that, huh?
Yeah.
So you can card anything you want.
Well, see, here's the thing on the, and you're right, Marilyn, because
We shouldn't joke
those
about
of
that
us
today,
that work as election judges,
Me too.
we see that the 9 out of 10 people, law or no law, present us with their ID first.
Yeah, and nobody actually came in last election
Yeah.
and said the voter ID law had no effect on them at all. They
Exactly.
didn't care because they were getting IDs anyway, and you know it was no different than they always had to bring some. It's easier to bring your ID in than to remember where that damn voting card is, which doesn't have.
Yeah, because
Your ID.
you traditionally always carry your ID with
Yeah.
you. Either you're driving or you're riding the bus or, you know.
Yeah.
You always have identification on
The
you.
national media makes
mean-
a whole bunch more out of this than is an issue for here in Texas. I think.
And I wish I could give you the specifics on it because I just glanced at the email very quickly, but earlier today, I got an email that came from the League of Women Voters, and they have something set up in cooperation with the Department of Public Safety. I believe it's coming up this weekend. They've got several locations across town for people who need to have establish some kind of identification
Right.
so that they can early vote this coming Monday on the 20th. But there are going to be some opportunities for those people who need some last minute identification.
And
I
all
think
you
that
need to bring down is proof of residence and some sort of photo ID, and it can be pretty questionable, and they'll establish your
Tomorrow's
residency.
my first day training, or
Yeah,
my,
right.
my day training. So I'll find out what we're gonna do locally to address this one issue. Because I know
If you
from
come
our
back
end,
next Monday, then you can tell us.
because
Well-
from our end, go ahead.
If you're registered to vote, what is the big deal with, with identification? There shouldn't be a big deal about it if you're a registered voter.
Well, if you're not a registered voter, you can't vote.
Exactly.
Right.
If you're not registered to vote, you can't vote.
That's a much bigger problem, really, than the ID question.
Well,
Exactly.
you know, back in the day, the precinct judges, the whole concept and understanding of voting was, the precinct mindset was that if you didn't bring an ID or you didn't, you forgot your voter registration at home,
You're in your neighborhood.
you're in your neighborhood and, hey, I know Mary, I know
know
Joe,
Mary,
go
yeah.
ahead, vote,
I still don't favor this early voting stuff. There's always been a way, if you're gonna be out of town working on something, you can get one, but it used to be your civic day. You come and work, you get dressed, you take the kids, you go out and stand in line with all your neighbors.
I have a question from Gabriel, who's here he's inside my phone.
Bill Davis.
It's for Kevin.
All right.
And he wants to know, and I wouldn't mind knowing too,
All right.
why you're running as a libertarian, given that I ran as a libertarian in 2002.
Sure.
And I immediately saw afterwards that if I had run as a Republican, I would have come within a couple of points
Mm-hmm.
because of the straight ticket voting. I'd like to get rid of straight ticket voting, get rid of it altogether.
Sure.
But stuck with it. And if you were running as a Republican, you'd have much less of a mark against you
Sure.
as far as winning the election.
Yeah, that very well may be the case. And it's a good question. Honestly, it comes down to the principles that I have. I mean, there's a lot of things, and they're not necessarily so much at the state level, to be perfectly honest. But if I look at the federal level, I cannot in any good conscience get behind the Republican Party, and that's just the bottom line. I look at the wars that are being fought. I look at the taxation that's going on. I look at the expenses that the Republican Party, just like the Democrats, are putting on the United States. I am not behind that in the least. So it's not. There's certain things from the Democrats I appreciate. There's certain things from the Republicans I appreciate.
But the Republican Party is a big tent.
Sure.
They would welcome you if you were running, especially in that race.
Right.
They don't force you
Right.
to support all the, especially at the state level.
Sure.
They're not going to force you to go out and support war or anything like that.
Yeah, I think that's probably true. But I mean.
Bush would have more clout if you were a Republican.
And it probably would, right? But it takes us back to the kind of the larger overarching problem with the entire United States right now. We have a two-party system that can't get a third voice in there because the dictation is
I
that
approve of that.
in.
I would never vote for a third party.
Well, there you go. So in
Well, tell me what country anywhere in the world with more than two parties that is a success? Italy? Greece,
England,
Spain.
England's relatively successful.
yeah.
You wanna go live in England? Yeah, you've been to
I
England
lived
many
I
times.
lived in England.
Yeah.
It was okay.
So it's tri-vision, because we already have division.
Well-
All right, we know one party rule is
Yeah,
bad.
yeah, but
Yeah.
Okay, so two-party rule is better, maybe three-party rule would be even
I
better.
think you can think of England, I think of Greece, Italy, Spain.
yeah,
Mexico?
but I mean, you're getting off the point on that one, because the fact of the matter is, a lot of those governments that you're referring to, at very least, they have mixed representation at the government level. So at least there are other people inside of the various
Economic standing
it-
and
it-
political standing, I don't.
But at least there's people inside of the various congressional bodies, the houses of parliament, if you will, that can come in there and then they can give a dissenting voice for certain topics. We don't have that. We have a winner-take-all system, and we have a two-party system that dictates the policies. And I mean, you're asking the
Because
question.
people like you won't join one party or the other.
Well, hopefully there'll be more people like me to create those dissenting voices so that we
The
can.
Republican Party's doing what they want.
Well, but you
Well-
know that the majority of the voters in America do not
That's true.
belong to either party.
That's right.
Sure.
Yeah, well,
Increasingly,
I'll
Yes,
vote for
increasingly
the sheriff
every-
when he's Democrat.
Right.
but they're not registering libertarian.
Yeah,
They're
it's
going
independent.
independent,
Right.
and they're
Yeah.
voting
Right.
however they want when it comes
But-
to the election.
But let me follow that up with something else. Is that the Republican Party, and you'd be the first person to agree with this, I think. The Republican Party is being forced to change. You said it
Oh,
just a few minutes ago.
absolutely,
Why is it
Yeah.
happening?
You
It's
should
because
be part of that change.
it's because I am part of the change. It's because
No, you're not, because you're
it's
libertarian.
it's because people like me are saying, I don't want to have anything to do with that. We're going to go a different direction, and we're going to siphon votes off for this other thing. So either
And
steer,
cause the
either
Democrats to win like Toby Miller
see, but
in his race.
that doesn't hurt. That doesn't help or hurt me because I'm against both of the two
It
parties.
hurts your community.
But if you're
Well-
putting pressure on the Republican Party to change,
Mm.
which is good,
And the
it
Democrats.
is changing, and the Democrats are changing. Ultimately, they're changing because they want to have you and other libertarians like you voting for them.
Mhm.
Well,
Yeah.
and where do they get paid off?
Well, at a certain point in time, you know, if you ask me if this process, if this kind of fiction we're talking about becomes a success, then
Fiction?
yeah, I mean it's not changing with any radical steps. So if I actually start to see change in it, then maybe in another 5 years, 10 years down the road, maybe I'll change my mind and I would be more willing to join one of those two parties. But for now, they have gone so far off track for what they're supposed to be doing. I just can't, in good conscience, get behind either
I
of them.
like to
so.
support all the great things we've done. Look how far we've come
Well,
since CHL laws.
We have made progress on some
We
issues. On some issues,
continually
there's been a great
tort
deal of
reform.
progress.
Oh, sure. The Republicans have introduced wonderful legislation. The Democrats have introduced some wonderful legislation. But as a collective whole, they are not.
Moving forward a long way.
They're not going in the direction that I want them to go in. And so I'm
They're
voting.
not- Well, it's a color republic. Everybody's got a voice.
Right. Well, that's
I
again.
don't want to get rid of Democrats. I just want them to have a little bitty seat at the table.
Well,
Hey, you
fair
gotta
enough.
admit, Corky,
Okay.
Okay.
Corky,
Okay.
Corky, my next neighbor's named Corky.
I've been called a lot of bad things, but usually by some of his parties.
In the last convention, the Republican Party did take a pretty big step backwards on a lot of these issues.
Right.
Or no change, like on the issue of gun rights, they didn't make any progress at all. And here in Texas, we got sort of a disconnect, particularly between the party leadership
true, the
and
RNC and
the
the-
common people in the party.
Back to the
Well,
city
I
of
did
Austin.
That's
Now, we
gonna
gotta,
be
we gotta
fun.
wait just a minute on the city of Austin, because that was it left a very bitter taste in a lot of people's mouth, the way the libertarians tried to strong arm the conventions, both here locally and at
Yeah.
the state level.
Well, strong arm they might
Well,
try,
it didn't
but
succeed
they didn't get
last time, so-
anywhere. So I mean,
Thank God.
Well,
You may not think it that way, but
Well, strong arming from the libertarians versus strong arming from the religious right, and from the Tea Party wanting to kill all immigrants.
Yeah,
6 to 1,
that's-
half dozen the other. What do you want?
so
step forward. So
So-
we all need to come to, anyway, yeah, we do need to.
So we also need to remember that along with state, local, county, school board races, we
have
also
some
have
counties and then
city
that's-
council races
We've got so many. This is
on
the
the
longest,
ballot.
the
It's
longest
gonna be a
ballot,
good
man.
5-10
It's
minutes
huge.
per voter to go down the ballot, but that shouldn't be discouraging
Well, and
because
a very good point was brought up. Some people religiously vote straight ticket.
Yeah.
The city council elections are nonpartisan.
That's true.
So we do ask people to, if they're gonna vote straight ticket, make sure that you work your way down the ballot, because if that's where you stop, you're gonna miss a lot of
And
you're gonna miss the
as
nonpartisan
an election
races.
judge, I don't mind sitting there and waiting while you go through and read the entire ballot,
Right.
so you can make an informed vote.
Exactly.
I would appreciate it.
unless it's 2 minutes to 12 and you're in an assisted living facility and grandma comes and wants to vote and you explain to her, we can assist you in voting, and she says, no, my husband was a city council member, and I'm gonna read this damn ballot all the way through.
Well, that's good.
And I said, well, good.
Well, actually, I have a quick question about that, if I could. I didn't realize this. So if you vote straight ticket in this election, it'll skip over the city council
no,
election?
no.
You just have to go down,
No.
all the way
No,
down
it-
to the
it-
bottom.
yeah.
I see.
You will not vote unless you go
The-
down and vote on those races individually.
I see.
But you're very likely to
Yeah.
miss that you can vote on them.
That's what I'm saying,
vote
because
straight ticket.
typically when you vote straight ticket, it takes you to the end, then you have to
Yeah.
back up, right?
No.
Isn't that how the?
No, this is
Yeah,
electronic.
we at least have a
Right.
system where you have to confirm
Yeah.
all the way through.
Oh, so you will have to confirm it. Okay.
Right,
But
and
if they're expecting it to be straight ticket and not thinking about the city council races,
Right.
they could very easily skip that section.
if
I
you
see.
look at the election results in these kind of elections, you'll see that there's a high number of straight ticket voters.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's why if they go vote straight ticket, they just want to go vote and then they walk out.
I'll
They
give you
say,
numbers,
"No, no, no, no."
33% for Republicans,
Yeah.
35% for
For
Democrats.
the Democrats, yeah, I
That
know,
vote
I was
straight
seeing
ticket.
some of those
Yeah.
numbers.
So
But
I'm
go
hoping
ahead.
that everybody knows that, this election is the first that's different. And, we really need to vote for city council. We need
Please.
to, the Travis County judge, we need to go through all the way down that ballot because it's so important. You don't want to miss out on this because we need our city to turn around.
This is how they've dominated the elections. It's even worse under the single pooled representation. But that's how they've dominated these elections, is because only certain people vote regularly in those city council elections.
Yes.
And you've got to break that up. You
We
can't just
do.
have these same people from Allendale and Hyde Park electing all the
Right.
people in the city council.
And I'm glad to see that 78 candidates are threw their hat into the ring.
That's amazing.
10 different geographic living environments and neighborhoods and growing
There's
up.
quite a,
Absolutely.
Parks and recreation are real important for the city of Austin.
They are.
And I want to ask you a question, what you think on this issue. Parks and Recreation is on October the 25th is wanting to facilitate, or is going to facilitate, a concert.
remember, look at the clock now, Lonnie.
I know, that's right. It's a concert. It's a concert that's being brought right in the middle of the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to sell beer. Okay? So is this a practice that you would support in using our parks that are directly in the middle of neighborhoods?
A very good question, and throughout the district, there's a wide variety of opinions on that. We do have some parts of the district with quite a bit of park space and others which have absolutely none. But the issue is pretty universal citywide. And my response to that, at least the short version of it, is if an event's going to be held in a park, alcohol's going to be sold, perhaps it'll be open late, I think there needs to be some type of a survey or some type of an approval from the surrounding neighborhoods. They need to have a voice in that. All too often, we've seen this escalate with the growing size of South by Southwest, ACL's 2 weekends now. I'm a music fan, and there's a lot that the city gains from having those kinds of events in the city. But at a certain point, you have to start asking yourself, where do we start drawing some lines? When do we start imposing some restrictions on attendance, on the hours, on the load that's imposed on the neighborhoods that are adjacent to these type of activities? And to your example, if in fact alcohol is going to be sold, there's going to be some late hours, then the adjoining neighborhoods need to have a voice in whether or not that even occurs and what the restrictions are.
Okay, on this Thursday, it's on the city council agenda, item number 20. I ask
Get
y'all,
out the action.
I ask y'all to call the council and tell them to vote no on number 20, because that is calling for the closure of the street, and the ripple effect of closing the street is that we're gonna have Easter Seals, gonna have a concert with a group that's gonna draw 2,000 to 3,000 folks. We have no parking. We have no parking. We have a school adjacent to the rec center, and they're selling beer. We've never sold beer in the parks. So this, to us.
So you're saying this would be the first time that this
is a
event happens?
This is government bullying.
It
The
is.
neighborhood was never
They
consulted.
used to have this over at Picture Shores, which is
Yes.
If
That's-
they was taken,
it's
so they
acceptable.
moved over here to Pan Am Park, which is a bunch of old people. That's the
Oh,
press conference we had, where they didn't ask anything about this issue, they all
so
wanted
they
to know
moved it to
voter
Pan
ID.
American.
They
what
moved it
said.
to the Pan American Recreation without consulting the
There's
neighborhood.
no.
According to the records, the city Parks and Rec
Old
was,
folks
was
everywhere.
dealing with Easter seals
Anyway.
since March of 2014. We did not find out until August. So it's that it's that whole attitude of Parks and Recreation to come into to disenfranchised neighborhoods, poor neighborhoods where you have parks and do whatever the hell they want.
Easter seals got a lot of money.
And that has to stop.
That mentality just permeates city government. It happens over and over and
does.
over again. And although it's not a park event, I'll give you an example in my own neighborhood. I live in Millwood.
We got 8 minutes left. So.
I live in Millwood, which is on the north end of District 7, and we have a very nice library.
Right.
And it is one of the libraries that's received bond money for some renovations. The renovations are not all that extensive, actually. You would think they'd be something that could be completed in a matter of a couple of months. The neighborhood just discovered a couple of weeks ago that the library will be closing, I believe it's about November the 10th, and will be closed throughout the remainder of this year and all of next year.
Oh,
And
no.
the neighborhood was not notified of this. That we weren't told about it, we weren't asked. It was just something that
We
fell
gotta hurry
upon,
up here.
that just fell upon the neighborhood.
That's
And it's
right.
it's another example of, a decision being made without any
Overreach.
communication, any interaction with the neighborhoods that are affected.
I presume, I know we see that in a lot of other issues
Yes,
as well.
We do.
Like the water treatment plant that we discussed out in, anyway.
That's all right, let's take it and dump it in Eastern Travis County.
Well, it won't be an Austin Chamber of Commerce Council anymore. It won't be a real estate council. It won't be an urban development council anymore because we're gonna have neighborhood folks.
That's
from
right.
10 different
Yeah.
districts. It's gonna
And
have a
businessmen,
totally.
you know
And
how
so
to,
they'll represent real estate developers from 10 different districts.
yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Let's make sure that doesn't happen.
No, because there's each district is very, very different. And,
We need to give these gentlemen a time to say something, because we got about 6 minutes left.
closing remarks.
No, we're not time for that, yet. We got 7 minutes left.
Okay.
We're gonna do 3 and 3.
10-4, go.
Okay. Well, I'll ask for the support and the vote of District 7 residents because we really need, this is a unique opportunity. It's the first time in 30, 40 years we really have an opportunity to take our city back. In fact, I'll steal that expression from changeaustin.org. It's what we used when we went out and campaigned for 10-1, but that's really what this is all about. And I encourage people to attend the forums, read the paper, be as educated as you can on the candidates, vote for the individual that best represents your interest, and quite honestly, for a whole host of reasons, I happen to think I'm the best candidate in District 7 by a long shot. And I'll turn it over to Kevin.
Do you know we used to have a mayor that would literally walk the alleyways downtown and make sure the garbage was picked up?
Whatever happened to those days?
Impressive.
Whatever happened to the days when council members actually took responsibility for their actions? And that's, I have a lot of platform items that I've discussed in forums and at neighborhood association meetings, but one of the umbrellas that covers a lot of those topics is, one of the umbrellas that covers a lot of those topics is fiscal responsibility. And I want to be part of a council where, when important decisions are made, that the council weighs the burdens, the cost, the consequences of its actions on the citizens, because I think we've gotten away from that. The council has lost touch with the fact that its decisions have an impact on the daily life of the residents, and I want to see us return to that type of responsive government.
Right.
Yes.
10-4. And
Thank
you can go to
you.
your website and find out how to help you out and where you're going.
You can volunteer, you can donate, you can ask questions, and I put a really high premium on open communication. I answer my own phone, I answer my own emails.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Go
I
ahead.
do.
Awesome.
All right. Well, I mean, and I'm going to echo a lot of what Ed just said there. So, in District 46, we've had a person in charge for the last 19 years. I have been working for the last several months trying to get her to engage me in any type of civic discourse, in any type of debate. She has ignored every single one of those requests. Now, this is somebody who's just created herself as a career politician. She's, as far as I know, she's certainly not listening to anything I'm putting out there, and I'm an active candidate. In the last 20 years, nobody has really actively challenged her. There's been a few paper libertarian candidates, but nobody's actually gone out there and heard what the other people, Dave's trying. There's not been a
I
lot.
was gonna go back
There's,
to if
there's,
you're a Republican, do
there-
you think she,
there's- there's not been a lot of people who have actively tried to pursue and to actively try to engage her in conversation. The fact is that we're getting a really positive response because the district is quite a bit more diverse than what the Democratic Party would suggest that it is. So I know that we have some differences in some of the topics that we've talked about here, but we also have a lot of overlap, and that's what I'm trying to do. Is I'm trying to focus on the 90% overlap that I share with people in this particular district. I've been in Austin for a very long time, so I do have certain liberal tendencies when it comes to social leanings. But when you start looking, it's just a fact. I don't have any problem with that. But when I look at the economics of things, when I look at the way that the United States has turned into kind of this empire of sorts, and that I'm ultimately fronting the bill for this, I am strongly against that. And that's those are the sorts of things I'm fighting for as a libertarian as well. So, we've run a very hard race. We've run a very active race. I'm interested in engaging with people. One of the ways that we really started getting this campaign going, I reached out to Reddit, started doing some, they call them AMAs, but these are kind of open topics. I personally responded to more than 2,000 questions from individuals. I've put my telephone number on everything, so I take calls all the time. I'm very interested in being engaged in the community and listening to the concerns that the people in the district have. I want to bring those to the State House.
You can go to your website and find out how to help and all that.
You can do that
Oh,
too.
Give Dave at least a minute to say something, Maryland too.
Sure.
Go quick.
Well, I'm supporting Kevin for CD 46, and I think it's a natural thing to try to elect somebody different instead of somebody who hasn't served us at all well. I say this having run against Donna Dukes, and actually my kids go to the same school as hers do, and she's just not really in
Your
touch
kids
with
go to
people.
public school?
Her kids, no, they don't go to public school. My kids go to private school. Come on. Come now.
All right, we got a minute. No, we got two.
No, but get out there and vote no matter who
That's
you vote
it.
for.
Right.
Because it's good to vote, and you can change things if you get it all together and don't fall for the line the establishment's giving you on everything.
Then for Maryland?
We
Agree.
absolutely
Thank
right. Like Gavino said earlier, early voting starts October 20th. It ends on the 31st. Remember, get out there and vote early. You can vote anywhere. That's what I like about early voting. Also, get to know who these candidates are. Begin to research, begin to study them, see if they have the same views that you have, and if so, hop on board. But in everything you do, just vote. You have to vote and make an intelligent decision.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of libertarians out there. I can't knock you too bad, and the young people.
There are.
Because I
There's
was
a
there
lot.
when Ron
They
Paul
wow.
was down there. Yeah.
I know that.
They're
I
keeping
know
it
that,
exciting.
we are going to see a large turnout of voting, just merely because you have 78 candidates. Each candidate will bring their own little base and whatnot. So that is a positive thing
Yes.
that we are expected to see come early vote and November the 4th. Call city council and tell them vote no on item 20. Call your city council member.
That
Let
was
'em know.
embarrassing out there.
say
All
no
they wanted
party,
to hear
huh?
about was voter ID, and everyone was standing right behind it. We got 30 seconds. We will be back next week. We got, I think, 3 candidates coming up, and that'll be our show right there at the first day of early voting. So instead of going for the last show on the 3rd, we're just gonna let pretty much anybody who wants to come on down and say their last little spiel in between. There'll be a lot of active campaigning going on then. But anyway, we'll be gone, folks. I do thank everybody.
Shout out to Raymond Maldonado and all your Trailer Park followers.
Get involved. All right, and we'll see you next week. Get out there and get involved.
Is
Say bye-bye, everybody.
that-
Bye-bye.
All right.
that- that-